love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU, and man, I hope my team they won one, yeah. I hope my team they won one, yeah. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one, yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see my team won a lot. If they loud, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, you tap. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Bill, he know what he be talking about. Michael Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won a lot, yeah, and who about. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson, and you gon' learn today, you gon' learn today, how you keep it play, make it play, how they play, boy, you gon' learn today, how you take it play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up in Tennessee, stay, tune into the HBCU Sports Lab, with Dr. Bill, Michael Charles, and I'm
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, presented by Amber Slaughter, the project architect. Amber Slaughter, the project architect, where they handle the project planning, project development, project execution, and team planning, team management, so you can run your business. Contact Amber Slaughter, the project architect, at www.theprojectarchitect.com to schedule an appointment. That is www.theprojectarchitect.com. Welcome and thanks for joining us inside our lecture hall, the HBCU Sports Lab, for the only weekly sports talk radio show that is dedicated to exploring the sporting HBCU diaspora, including the marching sport with its unique HBCU culture identity, the teams, the bands, coaches, athletic directors, commissioners, provosts, presidents, big rivalry matchups, classic games, homecoming events, and much, much more of the HBCU athletic aesthetics. As we merge our lecture with sports business practices in the competitive sports industry, the show seeks to provide innovative, progressive, and informative dialogue about the week's HBCU sporting issues, events, and ideas from a fan's perspective. We review the Southwestern Athletic Conference, better known as the SWAC, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, better known as MEAC of the NCAA Division I, Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, SIAC, Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, the CIAA of the NCAA Division II, as well as Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, GCAC of the NAIA, and independent programs such as Tennessee State of the OVC, Hampton of the Big South. Yeah, I'm not even gonna make you do that. It's not fun anymore.
It's not fun anymore.
It's not funny anymore.
At all.
As well as North Carolina A&T State. Aggies will be joining the Big South in 2021. Langston of the Sooner Athletic Conference, and Texas College affiliate member, as well as Edward Waters, as they transition to the NAIA NCAA Division II and membership in the SIAC. I am Dr. Kenyatta Hill, aka the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports. As we kick everything off and get started, Charles, what is the news of the day?
Yeah, let's get right into it, and this is breaking news from within the hour. This is from the SWAC office. The SWAC announces suspensions for the following the Jackson State and Prairie View altercation after a comprehensive review of post-game video footage. 2 Jackson State student athletes, Dontelius Ross and Khalil Spencer, and 1 student athlete from Prairie View, Darius Williams, have been found in violation. Thus, Jackson State student athletes Dontelius Ross and Khalil Spencer have been suspended for the Tigers' next 2 games on Saturday, February 22nd at Grambling, and Saturday, February 29th at Mississippi Valley State. And Prairie View student athlete Darius Williams has been suspended for the Panthers' next 2 games, February 22nd at UAPB and Monday at Mississippi Valley State. So this is a statement from SWAC Commissioner Dr. Charles McClellan. The SWAC will continue to send a clear message that this type of behavior will not be tolerated. Moving forward, any future actions of this nature that transpire at any point during the athletic contest will result in an indefinite suspension with substantial fines, penalties to all parties involved. The conference office must uphold high standard of good sportsmanship, and any conduct deemed detrimental to those efforts will be handled appropriately.
This is when I think television comes in, and the commentary of television actually does you a disservice. I looked at that film last night, and the first thing that caught me, and I'm a very, how do I want to put that? I'm very aware of the language that people use.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that first caught me was the caption of it said the brawl.
Brawl. Mm-hmm.
And I was intrigued about the words, because usually when I think of a brawl, I think significant. Now you rushing in here. Lay down, brother. When you usually, as I was in that thought there, when you talk about brawl, you usually bring up the connotation of fisticuffs with a lot of people involved in terms of fists being thrown. I would bring up chairs since I've seen that at Kansas State. Mm-hmm. And I didn't hear anything in terms of the subcaption, in terms of brawl, describing that. So I thought that was intriguing about that. Mm-hmm. So that's another case where you really need to look at the media in terms of how the media portrays things. And I think you see now with the suspension that came in place, and the fact that this was behind the heels of what you've seen with Alabama State and Texas Southern on the women's side. Sure. I think you got these shorter fuses in regards to that. And if you bring in the end of that statement that was made by Dr. Charles McCullum, the commissioner, how moving forward there will be these indefinite suspensions. So I thought that was interesting when you contemplate that. When I reviewed the video, and obviously could have different camera shots, I didn't see fisticuffs. I certainly saw something that was very ugly, that was bad for the brand, as we talk about, and those are important contexts. Watched it several times, but as you see things and you bring it to your attention, somebody else brought it to your attention. But I seen where Darius Williams at the beginning of the line had a elbow shoulder with contact that he was pushing off the other gentleman. But that alone, I don't think would have been suspension. But when you see what's going on, you see what's taking place there. Sure. I'm going to take a quick time out, bring you back, and then we'll bring into some more commentary, my full thoughts on what engaged, what took place there, and why I feel the way that I do. With that, this is Dr. Khalil inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is on assignment and disappeared conveniently when there's an altercation. I'm glad that you used those words between Jackson State and Prairie Ann University. I call it this dust up. But with that, we'll be right back.
This is KCOH Houston, the source, and we'll be back in a moment.
Well, sir.
Has been a true friend to my family for more than 35 years. Hi, I'm Rosanna Diedrich, and I want to talk to you about Judge Daryl Moore. Not only is Judge Moore a good friend, he is a great judge. Judge Moore makes sure that everyone who appears in court is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve, and that they receive equal treatment under the law. He is compassionate and fair. Judge Daryl Moore is running for re-election for the 333rd District Court. He will be on your ballot in the Democratic primary, and he needs our help. Be sure to look for our friend, Judge Daryl Moore, on your ballot. Elections matter. When we don't vote, our voices don't count. Please use your voice and your vote this election to keep a good friend and great judge on the bench in the 333rd District Court. Vote for Judge Daryl Moore.
Political advertisement paid for by More for Justice campaign. Poppy Northcutt, Treasurer.
I'm Maria T. Jackson, candidate for Harris County Commissioner, Precinct 1. I stepped down as your longest-serving felony court judge in Harris County to step up and serve our community because of lack of constituent services. For too long, career politicians have ignored the needs of our seniors, youth, and the general community, and have benefited financially from elected office. In the meantime, our community suffered from environmental issues and lack of resources. A recent report indicated that not one home in Harris County from Hurricane Harvey has been repaired, in spite of the county receiving $1.3 billion in
Mic check one. Mic check one.
kind of leadership. We
Mic check two. Mic check two.
I'm Maria T. Jackson, a public servant, asking for your support and vote for Harris County Commissioner, Precinct 1.
Political ad paid for by the Maria T. Jackson campaign. Who are you fighting for? That's what I ask candidates who ask for my vote. This is Mayor Sylvester Turner. I've known Rodney Ellis for more than 30 years, and he has always fought for everyday people. Folks who deserve good jobs, good schools, a roof over their heads, and a doctor when they get sick. I'm voting for Commissioner Rodney Ellis. I hope you will too.
This is Rodney Ellis. I'm fighting every day for people who believe health care is a fundamental human right, who believe you shouldn't have flood water in your home no matter where you live or how much money you make, who believe it's time to end mass incarceration and reform an unfair justice system that has torn families apart for decades. It is the honor of my life to serve as your county commissioner. I respectfully ask for your vote so I can keep fighting for you.
Your vote matters. Vote in the Democratic primary election on Tuesday, March 3rd, or vote early, February 18th through the 28th. Political ad paid for by the Rodney Ellis campaign.
This is Michael Harris. Making final arrangements for a loved one shouldn't be difficult. I found everything I needed and more at Mabry Memorial Mortuary, a staple in Houston's 3rd Ward and servicing families in the greater Houston area for over 20 years with professional and caring services for all funeral, cremation, and memorial needs. Centrally located at 5000 Alameda Road, offering 4 uniquely designed chapels and an in-house repass option, plus in-home streaming, quality merchandise, and aftercare guidance, all at reasonable and customary pricing.
And on behalf of our entire staff, this is Justin Mabry. We welcome you to stop by for a personal tour, as well as available to discuss all at-need and pre-need concerns. Mabry Memorial Mortuary, 713-942-7673, and our website, mabrymortuary.com.
Hi, I'm Judge Stacey Williams, candidate for Justice, Texas Supreme Court, Place 7. I'm in my 2nd term as judge of the 101st District Court in Dallas, and I am more than qualified to sit on the Texas Supreme Court. Besides being a district court judge in Dallas, I've been an administrative judge with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, a municipal court judge, and an arbitrator. I'm a graduate of the Georgetown University Law Center, Smith College, and the Hockaday School.
I'm surprised you thought I wasn't going to say that.
I knew you were going to say that. I wasn't the one. He was probably surprised.
The Citizen Civil Academy explores the types of cases heard in the civil courts.
The mic was open before you even knew it. The mic was already.
I was fine with him stating his opinion, but when he tried to provide statements as if they were facts, nah, that ain't gonna work. You're gonna have to be accurate.
And that is Stacey with the
At Sunnyside Dental, we believe that reputations are not built on what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, his kids be the first kids go somewhere and flunk out. Then they be trying to figure out where you go sit.
Before we recommend or perform
They be begging the HBCU, but y'all take everybody. But we don't want him.
Yeah.
Or her.
If this is the kind of conscientious care that you are looking for, call us
say we know where to draw the line.
738-1999.
But it's good for radio. Y'all had a good argument. That's why I looked up in the stats. He was going to say, I knew Alabama was never. I thought Alabama was dead last.
Unfortunately, you got Mississippi.
Yeah, we should be about 49, 50 somewhere. 48.
Call us at 713-738-1999.
Yeah, I know Mississippi should be probably in the bottom 5 somewhere. Yep, 48.
Come in with a toothache, leave with a testimony.
Dr. Charlotte Hall says
West Virginia, that's what I'm talking about. West Virginia went from 24 to 47. Can you bring that 24?
I believe it.
The 2020 tax season has come at Bayway Chrysler Jeep Dodge and
Now I want to see if they're going to vote for something
in the house.
The schooling system dropped from 24 to 47.
I want you to see all you can see in 2020.
What's going on, Stephanie?
It's the tax season, and it's the best reason to buy a car.
Bayway Chrysler Jeep Dodge and Ram is located at Highway 225 at the Beltway.
Call me at 713-433-4000. You've been waiting on your down payment? You got it now. Come see me. Let's make a deal.
Tax season savings going on right now at Bayway Chrysler Jeep Dodge and Ram. What kind of selection do you have over here?
What about a Dodge Ram? What about a Chrysler 300? And you know I love the Dodge Charger.
She loves that black Dodge Charger, y'all.
Come see me right now at Bayway Chrysler Jeep and Dodge in Pasadena.
If you need reliable transportation, give Stephanie a call or come on by. And if you're credit challenged, Stephanie, can you help them?
Let me help you establish or reestablish your credit.
Right here at Bayway Chrysler Jeep Dodge and Ram.
This is Dr. Ville inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and I was giving you some of my framing in regards to the event that took place after the game. Altercation, as Charles would say. ESPN called it a brawl, as opposed to when Kansas State, which they call a massive brawl. So it's intriguing in terms of the media and how media can shape a narrative of an event. And obviously, my point here is not to obfuscate the responsibility of all involved, nor defend those institutions, because as where I come from, you don't have to defend them. The situation is what it is.
Right.
Commissioner made a statement, made a point. I thought suspensions may have been higher than I thought they were going to be originally in terms of, I saw possibly a game, especially when you juxtapose it with other events that took place. But with this being the second event, I certainly can tell his frustration in terms of what this does to the brand and what is he doing overall,
right,
and how they plays, which gives you another framing just to talk about how much sports, especially at the collegiate level, is about the business of sports.
Exactly.
And I'm going to take it in that direction with that framing. And so people need to understand. Now, what makes this challenging is when you tell students, and what I refer to as college athletes, on one hand, that they're amateurs and so they can't get paid or whatever in their framing, and they need to be able to learn through situations. But then when things are not in favor of the brand financially, all of a sudden, like, man, y'all got to be punished. We got to clean this up for everybody. You know, this is all on ESPN. It's in the newspapers. We have Ralph Cooper, you know, various media outlets talking about this, and you brought shame to the brand. So now it's about the business, and you making our business look bad. So you got to be punished. You got to be punished hard.
Punished appropriately.
And then there's a other part that people refuse to look at, and I'm not afraid to bring it up, is when you talk about the ethnicities, the race of individuals made up in this framing. When you do that, when you're living in this Eurocentric framework, then it becomes easier because you have this negative component that many people want to put on the face of the black athlete, African American athlete. So when these altercations take place or these incidents take place, they oftentimes are exacerbated about the framing of what it goes on. And it's interesting when it comes from, hey, we're going to teach them a lesson versus, no, they have to be punished, which gives you, in this framework, in this state that we're in, where you talk about this need for incarceration and how even in athletics, the punishment may not necessarily be what they feel is incarceration, but it's the next step.
Sure.
We're going to punish you.
Sure.
We're going to ban you.
Right.
You've been an ugly person, and you got to leave. But that is the world you're in, and for college athletes, you need to understand that about your brand and what does that mean, and the brand of an institution. And as you're in this, you need to understand that what that means for you and what it's going to do for you. And now we just saw earlier where Texas Southern University, in a lot of ways, put themselves in a different position when they were seeking a championship in the women's side of basketball. Now you talk about the men's side for Prairie View A&M. Where is this going to place them in terms of seeking a championship? Now that's probably the least of the worries a lot of people want to talk about, but we're going to talk about the sporting context of what goes on. And then you look at Jackson State. When you talk about Jackson State, what does this do in regards to where they're seating? This just puts them in a position where it's even more challenging to get a home game.
Very much so.
What does that do to the financial bottom line? You talking about a coach that is in his last season,
right?
Where many people thought there was a question in regards, does he have the capacity to lead this team? What does it do for him? Now you're talking about, you know, being so upset because you lost in the disappointment of what this may mean for your coach. Now look what position you have put the coach in, in regards to how he's got to answer this, in regards to his constituent. Directly the VP of Intercollegiate Athletics, a interim president who's dealing with enough issues in terms of Jackson State, that overall brand fit, and what does it mean? Obviously the commissioner's office in the SWAC, and even to a higher holistic level, historically black colleges. And because you live in this racist society, right, that looks at different things through racist prisms. And so when I say racist society, I'm saying we've been dealing with this issue for a long time in terms of that. So not that everything in the society is racist, but you have a racist framing of a lot of things in this society. So with that, then you have this additional weight, where you heard W.E. Du Bois talk about this double consciousness, where you believe now that the way that you get rid of this legal racist, systemic racism that exists, that you feel now that you have to be this above and beyond, that you have to be this ultrally clean, that you have to have academically different perspective, right? About what it means to be in a situation where you can belong. And so those are some of the instant framings that come along to me that make it challenging when I see this in regards to this, and not the fact that I do have a bias that I work with young folks in the classroom and talk about these dispositions of their identity, whether it's the identity of their name, identity of their ethnic group, of the race, if you want to bring it in that context, into their institution. Many people talk about an athletic identity, how that frames their disposition, what it means to be seen as being manly and tough. And so all these contexts start to play their role in terms of understanding what this all means in a bigger society and how it reverberates and plays itself out in these cyclical cycles and recurrence of the media framing of a lot of this. So that's what I kind of wanted to bring to the table in a different manner, is understanding that context of what you see this meaning in many facets, particularly the business of sports. Any thoughts that you wanted to share, or the next news of the day, either direction you want to go, we can.
Sure. I mean, I was there last night, and I think you made a point earlier when you said in terms of looking at it, being in the kind of in the midst of it, it seemed a lot worse than it actually was, and that's not to make light of it, but a lot of pushing, shoving, and defensive posturing, I think is a word that you use, that when I looked at the video again, you associate the word brawl with it, and you kind of you see there's a clear distinction in terms of a lot of defensive posturing, but I didn't see a punch or things of that nature. So I thought that was a very interesting terminology that you framed it in, and you were correct in that regards. I will say that afterwards, and I was very, very impressed by Coach Byron Smith. I was out by the Jackson State bus, and he came out and he personally apologized to Coach Wayne Brent for everything that happened, and I wanted to put that out there because it was a very stand-up thing in terms of just, he didn't have to, but he came out there and offered his apologies for everything that happened. They hugged, and he was obviously disappointed and things of that nature, but it was important for me to put that out there, that just how stand-up previous coach was in terms of kind of taking ownership of it.
Yeah, certainly. I appreciate you sharing that for those that see the other side of the lens and not see the personal engagement. And I imagine that you now are talking about young men that are very remorseful in terms of what they see the outcome of what took place, and we don't often see that because we don't see young people as young people. We see them in men, and if they happen to be of color, now we even see them as criminal, even though they wear the hat of the athlete. And so it's important for us to juxtapose that, because we talk about having the opportunity to be in front of the mic, and when we be in the mic, we take that very seriously. And there's a time to joke and play, but then there's a time to deliver, information and deliver insight when you can, to provide a different narrative. Because oftentimes you don't get that different narrative, because again, that's not what a mainstream, if you want to call it that, media will respect, because that's not what they're in the business of, really providing their perspective, unless you have some of the unique shows that do a little better job than just the general media that is about providing as much information and madness that draws people's attention and accelerates their factors in terms of what that looks like. So wanted to provide that context. You know, as I said, instantly that came to my mind when I saw it yesterday. What are some of the other updates and news of the day?
Yeah, let's take a look at the SWAC players of the week on the men's side. Prairie View A&M's Gerard Andrus and Texas Southern's Yahuza Razas. They've been named the SWAC men's basketball co-players of the week following their impressive performances this past weekend. Andrus averaged 20 points per game to go along with 6.5 rebounds and 2 assists over the course of the week as Prairie View went 2-0 in league play. He scored 21 points on 5 of 10 shooting and grabbed 6 rebounds versus Grambling, and then added 19 points while hauling in 7 boards in the Prairie View's home win over Jackson State. Yahuza's Rosas, he averaged 18.5 points, 13.5 rebounds, and 1 block as TSU went 2-0 this past weekend in their homestand. He totaled 14 offensive rebounds as he recorded 2 straight double-doubles. He scored 20 points and 16 rebounds and 2 blocks versus Jackson State. He then back-ended that with 11 boards while scoring 17 over Grambling State. So those were the men's SWAC co-players of the week. We look at the MEAC now as North Carolina A&T's junior forward Cameron Langley. He was selected the MEAC men's basketball player of the week, and Cletrell Pope of Bethune-Cookman, he was the defensive player of the week. Langley recorded his second career triple-double and a 77-60 win over first-place North Carolina Central, which included a career-high 13 assists. He now sits just 13 assists shy of breaking the all-time record at North Carolina A&T. He finished the game with 12 points, 11 rebounds, and 12 assists, making him the only player in Division I with multiple triple doubles this season. Cletrell Pope, he averaged 14.5 points and 15.5 rebounds last week in the Wildcats for the Wildcats as they went 1-1 with a win over Delaware State. In the win over the Hornets, Pope was 7 of 8 from the floor and finished with a game-high 19 points and 16 rebounds. He now has 14 double-doubles on the season after recording 10 points and 15 rebounds against the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. So those were your players of the week in the SWAC and MEAC.
Thank you for that great update in terms of those players that are getting it done in terms of stellar weekends of actions. At the end of the show, obviously, we'll give you that top 5 and tell you about some matchups. Big one this week, as you had the game before the Prairie View Jackson game, which is North Carolina A&T and North Carolina Central.
Big one.
After the women got it on Saturday with North Carolina Central, the Eagles getting it done against A&T Aggies, and we'll see how that reflects in the poll. You had basic first place online, essentially, between the two teams out of North Carolina. Great matchup. I was curious to see what the gym would look like on Monday. You tend to play, especially in the MEAC at least, you tend to play your rivalry games on Saturday. You see that a little different because especially the Centroid teams that have multiple rivals, you'll see some of their rivalry games on Saturday, but then you'll see another set of their rivalry games on Monday. So it's interesting to see, and credit to North Carolina A&T fans, as we talked about. They packed out that place.
Yes,
that game looked really good on TV.
Yes, it did.
And kudos to the credit of the players. Because I thought Mouton was going to come in there. Coach Mouton, that is North Carolina Central Eagles. I certainly thought his team would be ready to play. And, boy, Aggies jumped on them, and they do what a great team, good team does. When they get a chance to kind of put some distance in front of you, they did that. They kept pushing the distance. And any time it looked like Central, the Eagles, would make a run, the Aggies had an answer on the men's side. So they really beat up their rival, which I'm sure is really exciting for a lot of those Aggie fans out there. So credit to them, which created the two-way tie between North Carolina Central and the Aggies, if you would, in terms of the loss columns, and helped Norfolk State out.
Yeah, it did.
With just 2 losses. Oddly enough, the 2 losses for Norfolk State are to those teams, North Carolina A&T Aggie, North Carolina Central. And the fact is, those 2 teams play again. This time it goes to Raleigh. Durham, over in that area. So it'll be interesting. Can the Eagles get a little payback but what does that do to help Norfolk State out in terms of the closing their season? So it'll be interesting to see those matchups. Let me give some shout out to some of the people that have joined us today. Reggie Howe jumping up there. He has a question and statement, so I'll get to that. But let me shout out to a couple of other folks. Lana Shaw, Aggie's back in the house, giving much love, just joined the show. Michael Lee say, what's up, guys? Going to give it to you hard and heavy. Willie Alex Hines says, what's up, gentlemen? Here to get my HBCU news once again.
Brother
Appreciate
Hines.
you. Dwight Moore, truth spoken. Appreciate the acknowledgement. Garland Dunlap, posturing definitely, no punches thrown, just anger exposed. The shoving and handshake line was unnecessary. The reaction was ridiculous. Garland Dunlap, definitely nothing close to a brawl.
Yeah.
But the media considers it a brawl when it's people of color. Interesting perspective there. That's a problem in itself. Isaiah Thornton is making sure that the connection is done in the background. Talk about a little bit that he was late in here. Then he comes in here, closed, slamming doors. My goodness. Aggie pride. Yes, Dunlap, man. Those Aggies got it done, especially on the men's side. Credit to them. Very wonderful to watch. Donna Glover says hollers. I think she was in Chicago for the All-Star weekend. I saw her checking it out there, but I heard it was cold up there. Woo, there weren't no parts of that. But shout out to those folks. Let me get back to this question before we move on to some other topics. As Reggie puts out there, good day, gentlemen. How can the HBCU sports conferences step their game up to bring in new schools or keep the schools from looking to leave? The framework that you're in, as we started to show off when we moved from what took place between Jackson State and Prairie View in regards to how that affects the brand, conference churning is a term that they use out there in the academic world that actually explains the economic framework of why conferences churn. And it simply means that conferences at all levels, whether it's conferences made up of all HBCUs or conferences made up of all historically white colleges or universities, I like to call them HWCUs, or some type of hybrid between the two types of conferences that you see out there. Essentially what you come to see over the years is that teams at the top seek to move to a higher level conference if there's one that exists. And that can be moving from divisional status, meaning you move from Division II to Division I, which obviously in football is split between FCS and FBS. Or it can be even from NAIA to Division II, or NAIA or Division III, to Division II at the NCAA level. Or it could be moving within a division where there is a perception of one conference financially being better than another conference. We talked about this a little bit last week when we were making a discussion between the MEAC and the Big South and saying financially, was that truly a different move? We won't get in that context. We run that to death, and I think those that want to hear more about it, you can go check out our show from last week. But the context of this question is let's look at the FBS level, where it's pretty obvious when you look at the difference between what they refer to now as the Power Five schools. Particularly, let's look at something like the SEC, regionally speaking, and the next five that they call them. So let's look at the Atlantic Conference, which now is marketing itself as the sixth power conference. But if you look at those two conferences in terms of the financial means that those two conferences provide each other, there is a vast difference. It's easy to see the multi-million dollars, like I think last year they were talking about each school in the SEC before they even opened the doors for the upcoming academic year in their framework, the athletic year. They were giving $40+ million to each school. Right?
Yeah.
In the American Conference, they were lucky to get like 16, maybe 20, almost less than half of that. So if you're a team in the Atlantic Conference and you start winning, your eyes light up to where you're looking at the SEC or another conference that could provide you more financial windfall. And so that would be a turning, that your top teams. Now, if you're not careful, what you find out is your bottom teams in some conference will actually fall out as well. They will choose to go to a different conference themselves or move down.
Sure.
You don't necessarily see a lot of that, but that does exist. So that's where the term churning comes from. So to get back to your question, in terms of, that's a natural thing first that we need to understand. The conference is churning and moving. So what makes it challenging for HBCUs is for conferences to churn. It's different for historically white colleges that are in conferences because there's more of them, so there's more likely that they can churn, even though most of the time it's regionally speaking. So that's why it's easier to imagine that CIAA teams churn and go into the MEAC, or vice versa. You see teams coming out of the MEAC churning back into the CIAA. Similar, you see regionally speaking SIAC, they churn out of the SIAC and go into the SWAC, or churn back out of the SWAC, which we hadn't really seen. But even outside of the MEAC, in terms of schools in the southern regions, as you see recently with Savannah State, where they churn back into the SIAC. So what do? As a commissioner, what you look at is how do you find more financial and to some degree academic benefits associated with your conference? How do you create more revenue streams? The main revenue streams associated with conferences are NCAA money that they get at the Division I, that's the basketball money. They do get some other streams. They are looking at a stream that is dedicated to, essentially associated with APR, an academic stream, meaning if you hit certain goals, you will get a pot of money associated where they pay it out. You also have, obviously, television revenues, which is a challenging stream for SBS because you're trying to figure that out. And what you see at that level, because of the new social media platform of streaming, which is good because you see more games that we talked about in the football season, but there's not necessarily a financial windfall with that.
Right.
Organizations, big corporate organizations doing streaming, are still trying to figure out how do they financially get revenue associated with the streaming platform. And those corporations haven't found a happy medium of what is the price points associated with streaming. They're still looking at that. So you don't see significant contracts associated with streaming to conferences. So that is a line item, but most of the TV money is associated with your direct TV money, and we know where that goes to the Power 5.
Right.
So that's a challenging area to get. You can get some money from grants, obviously ticket sales, you get money associated with, and then just sponsorships. So those are different areas you look at. So you have to find a way as a conference to increase those revenues. So what you look at is one way to look at it is your fan activation. Not just fan attendance is where we look about, but fan activation. So that's why it's important. One of the biggest businesses out there that does this, and I'll kind of move on so I don't want to belabor too much of the point, but at one point, one of the highest level of activation was NASCAR. If you have fans that were associated with NASCAR, and the way they measure activation is if you put something on a NASCAR, or you put NASCAR on some type of product, it would sell at a higher rate than any other brand associated out there, even the NFL. And so companies would love to be attached to something that provides activation. So you only get sponsorship dollars, right, if the sponsor believes that this is going to create activation from fans out there, meaning that they're going to come buy their product, so they're going to make money. So if I'm a business, I'm only going to pay you $1 if I believe I can make at least $1.01, and usually you're really talking about significant revenue, so really $1.50. But you got to make a profit.
Sure.
Or I'm giving away money, I'm losing money, so it's no reason to sponsor you. So companies don't just sponsor you for goodwill. You have some maybe out there, but for the most part, they want to make their money back. So you have to find a way to organize your fan base in such a way and say, hey, when we get this sponsor, we need you all to make this your first level of consideration of spending your dollars, fan. They are working with us, and if you need these products, we want you to service this brand that is associated with us. And the more you create that reciprocality between the two, the higher that the brand associated with the business is willing to put money into the conference. And obviously, the more money the conference has, the more it can distribute to its institution. So as long as you live in America, very capitalistic system, and now basically the world is in its framework, the more you're going to have to follow the business model of the business of sports and just businesses in general, which is activating your fan base associated with the companies and brands that support your business. So that's a long-winded answer to what you're looking at. That, and I think in a lot of ways it's time to get to our call so we can get into some more of the sporting context. And I hope this is B.J. Jones. If it is, it gives you a chance to get into which was signing day that took place last week, and get some more information of what that looked like. We have B.J. Jones on the line. No, I think this is another guest. We'll see if we can get B.J. Jones. Check on that. I think there's somebody else calling in, check in on the show.
Sure thing.
See if we can get B.J. Jones to call in, give him a text and stuff like that. You can hang it up on the line there. With that context, as we were talking about a little bit about the business component there, is some ideas in that. We have our guests for the next show bringing it in, and they're getting a little fancy on us. You talking about that soapbox hero, Tyrone, as he brings it like that. Looks like he's going to go to a little video streaming framework and tape some things like that. So we're going to let them set up, so don't get too nervous on us, our fans out there that are watching and thinking that there's a takeover. We're fine. We're going to still bring you the HBCU sporting news and things of that context. Yeah, can you check that line and see if there's B.J. Jones giving us a call? B.J. Jones? Hey, what's going on? Good to hear you. We're going to get you prepped a little bit in regards to the show and get you ready to give us some of them updates and news there. But as we do this, give us a second or two as we get our studio engineer, Isaiah, to hook it up in regards to make sure they can hear him on the mic there going on. So, Charles, with your component, what were your thoughts before we establish B.J. Jones and get him to really go in deep like he does? What were your thoughts in terms of signing day? When you're in agreement with the classifications and the rankings that you saw out there?
Yeah, I was very impressed. Number one, it was the Alabama schools. You're talking about the Magic City foes, Alabama A&M and Alabama State. Those were the two signings that kind of jumped out for me, if you will. And your stalwarts that over the past 4 or 5 years, the ones that have really just done yeoman's work. We had Coach Willie Simmons on last week and talked about what Florida A&M was able to bring in, but not only Florida A&M, but Alcorn and North Carolina A&T as well did another bang-up job in terms of what they were doing. So love to bring B.J. in and kind of get his thoughts on that.
Now we got the expert,
right?
B.J. Jones. For those that don't know, which I'd be, those that follow us, I'm be surprised at those. But tell everybody who you are, B.J.
Man, y'all say expert, man. Y'all put a lot of pressure on the young brother. But man, B.J. Jones, man, HBCU game day. Got a podcast coming with the Open Mic Network.
Congratulations. Nice.
I appreciate that. But man, been around HBCU football, man, my whole life. You know, Dad played at Bama State. I'm a Jag, played at Southern University up under Coach Pete Richardson.
Legend.
And just been around this game my whole life and have a passion. So, man, I have fun doing it, man. Have fun interacting with you guys. Got a chance to, you know, after my playing days, to meet guys like you and Charles Bishop and Mike Prince and Stephen J. Gaither and just so many other wonderful people. You know, really enjoying, you know, covering HBCU.
With that, just wanted to get right into it as we're moving along. I know you do a ranking. Talk about first, not your ranking in terms of who were actually the top teams and top couple of teams in the SWAC, top couple of teams in the MEAC, and then overall HBCU programs where you ranked them. And then we can touch on a little bit what you saw in the SIAC, CIAA, because you know we like to cover it all.
Okay.
But with that, talk about how you come up with your ranking. How did you come up with your rankings?
So what I did, man, I kind of look at what I do look at what Scout and some other rankings, you know, people who do rankings have. That gives me a focal point, but oftentimes there are times I don't agree with them. I'm a guy that's been around the game, played the game for so long, coached the game, and I tend to look at more than just huddle film. I want to look at an actual game that a kid is played in. I don't want to just see highlights. I want to see what do you do down by down. I want to see the mistakes you made. What are the holes in your game? And then I'll assign a ranking on a kid 1 to 5, and then I'll, you know, do that for the whole class, and I'll average it. And I also take into account what's your team need. You know, what do your team needs? Have you fulfilled those needs? Is this a kid that could potentially come in and play immediately? Or is this a, developmental situation where we're looking at a red shirt and a couple of special teams years and then getting the kid on the field as a junior? So I'll go into all of that, and I know that's something that a lot of people don't do, but, just from like the coaching at the high school level, getting guys ready for the collegiate level is one of the things that I have an eye for. So it's been pretty cool being able to do this. It can be tedious, but it's just to see the end result and how everything averages out. And you have a way in your mind how you think some of this stuff will average out, and it averages out usually completely different. So, like I said, man, I had fun with it.
No problem about that. I was going to ask, in terms of your experience coaching and working with athletes, is that the same way that you hear a lot of the coaches evaluate when they're looking for particular recruits?
Oh yeah, man, absolutely, man. You look at not only what a young man is able to do on the football field, but what they do in a classroom, with APR, that's important. No longer can you bring in the guys, back in the day, the Prop 48s, and hope you can get a semester or two out of them. I get a season or two, before those major classes come, and then after that, wishing for the best. Now, you can no longer do that with APR. But just going around and just looking at everything. I talk to the young men, especially the young men who are being recruited, talking to them about some of the things that they're posting on social media. The highlight tape. I tell them, hey, look, your highlight tape don't need profanity, man. I just want to see you ball. So you just doing all those things to help them tie everything into the game, to put them in the best possible positions. But yeah, I look at the prospects from a coaching standpoint more so than I look at them from any other aspect, because that's my angle with it.
No problem. Charles, you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, BJ, and it was very interesting the way you kind of come up with your ranking system. But I got into a really interesting debate, and one of the things that we kind of took a look at was when you have these big signing classes, what does it mean in terms of the scholarships that you have to offer? Do the big signing classes, are those things that kind of catch the eye of the people who are evaluating? And what does it mean for the classes that aren't big? If they're 13 to 15, does it mean there are a lot of people coming back, or what exactly does it mean when you have a big signing class versus not having a big signing class?
Well, big signing classes, they get people excited, but they also kind of give people this illusion, whoa, we really worked on recruiting this year. At the end of the day, at the FCS level, you only have 63 scholarships. You can only offer what's available. I always tell people, don't look at the quantity, look at the quality of the kid that comes in. Because one of the things that I do with recruiting, I'm going to start doing this year, is I'm going to reseed the class. We're going to take out the kids who didn't qualify. We'll take out the kids who maybe decided, I didn't want to go to the school. So a lot of signing classes look great here when we're talking in February. When we start talking about in August, when it's time to report, you start noticing that, so-and-so didn't report. So-and-so is at, this JUCO in Mississippi or Arizona, what have you. Now that signing class looks completely different. But yes, big signing classes get people excited. Grambling signed, I think, 26. They got people excited. Southern didn't find that big of a class, but Southern addressed needs. So I take all of that into account. But yeah, big signing classes, man, it's like that state. That state that you on TV. Oh man, we did a good job. But, let's say just hold the phone. Let's see how it plays out.
Right.
I love it. Great analysis. So back in August, our expectation is we know that you have your own show coming now, and you got to have content for your show. So we're going to take away from your content, but don't forget the big boys, or your big brothers, as we say, that showed you some love. We need you back in August to explain the re-ranking. So, don't get all ugly and, big time on them. Superstar. You know what I'm saying? Especially celebrity. You know how some of them Kappa brothers are. I ain't saying, but I'm just saying.
Hey,
some of y'all can get a little stunning on folks. You know y'all like that one hand shovel. I ain't gonna lie, I like that. I couldn't do it, but I like that. Some of y'all can make that look like that. Yeah.
But no, man, I never that. I just, I have a great appreciation for everyone who's helped me out along the way.
Yes, you do.
And I always
and you shout them out. Yes, you do. To
your
credit.
Make sure it's made the transition from the field and the sideline to doing the media thing a lot easier. Just having people to take you up under their wing is willing to school you. Because I tell anybody, and I still feel the same way. I came into this game clueless on this side. There's a lot of stuff that I thought that I knew, that Mike Prince and you guys and other people have pulled me to the side, Carlos Brown, and say, hey, this is the way that you maybe should do this. And like I said, I still consider myself a sponge in that aspect. But I'm new to this, and I'm grateful and blessed that a lot of people have taken that time out to even show me the ropes.
Yeah, very appreciative.
Well done. Chuck Hunt says, I love his Sunday podcast. Give you some love out there. Jimmy's joined us. So we got some folks coming in here talking about this. Jimmy trying to give us a little love. He talking about this is his favorite show, boy. I tell you what, money is gold. Hey, Jimmy, that check is in the mail, baby.
You better believe it.
What they going on. But before we get into the rankings, as you know, our time is near. Any additional question you want to ask, or you want to jump right into it?
No, we can jump right into it.
So let's get into your rankings. Let's give some love to our CIAA, SIAC. What are some of the teams in the CIAA that either surprised you or really did a good job in terms of their ranking?
Man, the team that really surprised me was Virginia U. They really went out. They signed a top 5 class in the conference. Winston-Salem State does what Winston-Salem State do. They got a lot of talented kids, and it was a lot of local kids that Winston-Salem went and got. Virginia State, what Reggie Barlow was able to do, he's continued. He's compiling talent from everywhere. If you see Reggie Barlow got down south, got down to Montgomery, Alabama.
I'm glad you caught that too.
Yeah. And he was able to get a grad
snuck in that back door.
Yeah, and able to get some high school kids from the city of Montgomery. Also, when you start looking at what Fayetteville State was able to do, Bowie State, man. If you think that pipeline of talent, going up there to Maryland has cut off, you a sadly mistake. They're turning them out, and they get a lot of kids from the Baltimore area, the Baltimore area.
The DMV.
So they did a good job, but I had Winston-Salem State ranked as that top class in the CIAA. Just barely. I had them edging out Fayetteville State in the CIAA.
Let's jump in here and talk about the SIAC. Let's take it down south a little bit at the NCAA Division II level, as we like to call it, the mid-major division.
This is the shocker. Savannah State did an amazing job. They got the #1 class in the SIAC. And the truth be told, if you look at prospect for prospect, Savannah State out-recruited some of our FCS brothers. If we're being honest about it. Savannah State went in and they did work. They are in a talent-rich area. You got that South Georgia area.
South Georgia, yes, sir.
You have in Colquitt County, Valdosta. They were able to get that area, get what they needed out of the Atlanta area, and then start hitting border states. Florida, Alabama, getting kids out of South Carolina. So they did a good job. Albany State was just behind them. Albany State and Miles were right there neck to neck with each other. If you look at what Albany State's doing, they were able to follow kind of the same footprint that Savannah State did, but Albany State went more local. They went more Georgia kids, especially guys around that Peach County area. They hit the area hard. Miles College was able to get some kids out of the Birmingham area, which you have to do. They were able to go over into Mississippi and get a few junior college kids. They did a good job. Tuskegee still was able to do what they do. I like what Tuskegee is doing. They're getting a lot of kids now, not only out of the Atlanta area, but they are now locking down the fort around that Tuskegee and Montgomery area. We start seeing them get the kids out of Valley, Alabama, which isn't too far, Auburn, Alabama, Opelika, Mobile, getting kids around that area. So I had Tuskegee in the 4th spot, and then Morehouse. What Morehouse was able to do, when we start talking about recruiting, people don't think about Morehouse. Morehouse probably had signed the best class that they've signed in a while.
Interesting.
You know, they were in that 5 spot, and they were able to pull a lot of kids out of the Atlanta area.
Yeah.
Atlanta area.
Yeah.
Atlanta area. They were able to get a lot of local kids to stay home. And what Morehouse sells, and heard the coach in his interview, being a man of Morehouse, and what that means is not only while you're playing, but what that means in life after football.
That's a heck of a selling point.
They're selling that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's sold, obviously.
Yeah, that's a heck of a selling point. Yeah.
Good deal when you talk about that. So let's move on a little bit. Let's go, since we're in home of the SWAC, let's go to the MEAC first. And the MEAC is on the right in terms of what they've done. In a lot of ways, the MEAC SWAC Challenge was particularly in the Celebration Bowl. So let's give the MEAC their due proper. Let's talk about the MEAC. What did you see out of the MEAC? Top 2-3 teams that you ranked there. Maybe a team that you thought would have done better, but you had, based on the ranking, didn't do as well, along with those top 3 teams, let's say.
A rising tide raises all boats.
Hmm.
Look at what North Carolina A&T was able to do in December. It looked like North Carolina A&T recruiting-wise was going to run away with the MEAC. Coach Willie Simmons and that staff down at Tallahassee had other plans. And when they closed out signing day, they had the #1 February. They had the #1 class in the MEAC. They brought in firepower. FAMU did. North Carolina A&T was #2. And they were still able to do what they needed to do. They met need. Their class was not as big as FAMU. But when you look at the kids that North Carolina A&T brought in, they had two transfers from Virginia Tech, the 4-star running back from Pittsburgh. But then we start looking at the guys that they were able to get from the high school rank, dipping into Charlotte, going over into Nashville, Tennessee, going into Florida. North Carolina A&T was able to do a lot. North Carolina Central surprised some people. You look at the year that Coach Trey Oliver had a year ago. Lost time, lost a quarterback via the transfer portal. North Carolina Central brought that back. And they brought in a kid who won 2 state championships in the state of North Carolina, had passed for over 6,000 yards in his final 2 years of eligibility at the high school level. They brought in a quarterback, and they met some needs. North Carolina Central had them in the 3 spot in the MEAC, and also, man, Norfolk State and Morgan State. Those 2 people speaking on what Tyrone Wheatley is doing up there in Morgan State, but he was able to get a lot of talent. And he was able to do what Bowie State was doing. There's a lot of talent in there. Baltimore, Washington, D.C., that little area right there. Keep it home. If you can keep it home, man, you can be competitive. So he did a great job. One high school that kept popping up with Morgan State was DeMatha.
Yes.
DeMatha.
Interesting.
We know about DeMatha.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So if you look at their program and what they're out of DeMatha.
No doubt about it. And their expectation in terms of playing solid football is there, in terms of playing winning football is there. With that, let's go with a lot of people around here want to hear. What were your thoughts in terms of the SWAC?
Overall,
before you go too far on the SWAC, I did want to add this quick caveat. I know a lot of people were really rubbing their noses in the Coach Willie Simmons about how they decided to use beating North Carolina A&T and having the best record in the MEAC and being in a fight, for some people's opinion, about being the national champion. And I told a lot of people that won't listen to me, I said,
strategic.
I said he is keeping FAMU out there in the marketplace in terms of branding. And we talk about all this.
Right.
And so you laugh now, but you might cry later, and look in terms of the ranking. Now, I'm not saying this was all because of that, but I do believe a significant component of that was the fact that at least the students that he was talking about and how he fought for those players and how people saw him fought for those, that can resonate with some people. But let's go into the SWAC a little more in regards to what did you see take place in the SWAC?
you made a strong point about Willis Simmons. Bingo.
Thank you.
Bingo. Because that's what he sold on the recruiting trip. But in the SWAC, I think that the SWAC's overall talent is increasing year by year. The number one class in the conference, at first glance, I felt was going to be Alcorn. I mean, there was a lot of hype that come about. Javon Taylor the Wood from out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, signed with Alcorn. Guys who had a lot of FBS offers, running back out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. A lot of hype about that, but when the dust settled, the number one class in the conference was Alabama State. Alabama State surprised a lot.
Go ahead, Hornets.
People don't talk about Alabama State, but when you look at it, the kids that they were able to get, this thing about Alabama State's class. Alabama State signed 15 kids from the state of Alabama.
Wow.
They signed 6 kids from the Birmingham area. They Alabama A&M, contrarily, only signed 5 kids from the state of Alabama. None from the Birmingham area. Alabama State and their coaching staff has made an effort to lock down the city of Birmingham, which is your most talent-rich area in the state. Birmingham and Mobile. Alabama State hit both of them hard. They was able to go into Alabama A&M's backyard, pull a young man from that Tennessee Valley area, from Decatur, an all-state linebacker, 6'4", 230-pound kid who could play outside linebacker, could play defensive end. They were able to pull him from that Tennessee Valley area. Alabama State, Coach Donahue Ely said that they were looking at kids who can go day one. We're looking at kids that can go day one, and it showed in their signing class. I got Alcorn at number 2. Alcorn did some great work. If you think that their line of running backs that Alcorn churns out is ending, no. They signed Austin Bolton, All-American junior college player, played at Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
They got Leatherwood. They just brought in 2 more running backs. Still got Nico Duffy. Still got Trey Turner. So that line of running backs is amazing. But Alcorn went hard on the offensive line. They were able to address that need. 3 in the conference actually have Southern. Southern didn't sign that big of a class. They brought in some kids since signing day. I think it's like 3 more kids. So other than address the linebacker position, they addressed the secondary, they addressed the offensive line. They were able to get some solid linebackers from out of that Miami area, Dade County. So they were able to do that. I got I got Grambling in the 4th spot. They signed a big class. But Grambling brought in, I think it was a class of 26. And they went all over. They were able to get into Texas, get Louisiana kids, get into the state of Alabama again, get a young linebacker from Gordo, who I think is going to have an outstanding career there. They get into Memphis, Tennessee. They were getting to a lot of places. They signed a big class. Grambling still focusing on that offensive line. Got to show up that offensive line. They also signed a lot of kids in the secondary. So it looks like they're looking for help there. And then I had Alabama A&M rounding out the top 5. With Alabama A&M, they hit the state of Florida hard. They did have a quarterback commitment. A young man that they thought they had him bad, that changed his commitment at the last minute in Alabama State. So that stung a little bit. But when you look at what they were able to do, they were able to go into the state of Florida, only signed 5 from the state. I know it makes a lot of A&M fans kind of upset. Only signed 5 from the state, but they were able to get quality kids. So Alabama State, Alcorn, Southern, Grambling, and A&M was in my top 5. Prairie View wasn't too far behind. From 1 to 7 in the SWAC was separated by a point and less than a quarter.
Yeah.
So a lot of teams, just because you went in the top 5, a lot of teams did some solid work. Look at what Jackson State was able to do. Was able to get a young man from a program that I coached at, up at Bob Jones up in Madison, Alabama. That's in the shadows of Alabama A&M. They were able to get that young man. They were able to get some quality kids out of the state of Mississippi. You look at what Prairie View continue to be able to do. I don't know. We're going to shut down the city of New Orleans. Prairie View is getting in there. They're getting in there, man.
Thank you, Cole. Yeah, get on in there in New Orleans. Get some of that good old gumbo and bring it back.
But they're doing, and if you look at what Texas Southern was able to do for a second consecutive year, you know, they were able to bring in a solid class. Even Mississippi Valley. If you look at what Mississippi Valley brought in, especially at the quarterback position, quarterback and running back position, they were able to pull a young man from down you guys' way. That went to decided to sign with Mississippi Valley, and there's a lot of expectations on that young man on what he can do once he gets to Itabena and gets settled in. So, man, just overall in the conference, man, there was solid classes. The number one class was definitely Alabama State, and what they were able to do.
BJ, let me ask this question real quick because you mentioned the cities, but give me your top 4 HBCU hotspots in terms of areas of the country.
Oh, I would say New Orleans, Houston, Atlanta, and there's going to be a close one between Birmingham and that Dallas Fort Worth area.
Got it.
Because when you look at HBCU rosters from, and we're talking about just all over, just not one conference. You always go see kids from Atlanta. You're starting to see kids from New Orleans matriculate their way up the East Coast.
Interesting.
You're starting to see, kids from Birmingham are SIAC heavy, SWAC heavy, but you're starting to see them starting to matriculate into the MEAC and some other places. Houston, man, is Texas. You know, those kids are everywhere. The Dallas-Fort Worth area, that's a talent-rich area. So those areas, and you also would have to throw in that South Florida, Miami area too. Yeah. Because all of us dip down in there and get players. There's just so many of them.
That's really fascinating. Great question there, Charles. As we start to close up, did want to give you a little update there. Dwight Moore says Alcorn becoming the J-State of old with those running backs.
Stop.
Dwight Moore says that's PV's coach's best recruiting area, as you talked about. Garland Dunlap says RBU is A&T, so it's a little battle going back there. And as a guy that just wants to get to the Celebration Bowl other than covering it, I would say both of them are doing pretty well.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's appropriate. Last thing we do here before we get you to get those top rankings, quickly, did you have any note that you could give us on Tennessee State and or Hampton University?
Well, Tennessee State, I had them. We talk about the rank; they're ranked pretty high. Tennessee State was able to pull in a solid class. They're third amongst the HBCUs. Hampton and Coach Parenti, they were able to do some solid work. They're actually in the top 10 as far as the FCS HBCUs as well.
Okay.
So both of them pulled in very, very solid class.
Well, quickly, give us your top 5, if you would, real quick. Top 5 total HBCU programs where they rank at the FCS level, what we call the major division.
Okay, Alcorn State at number 5, Dallas State at number 4, Tennessee State number 3, North Carolina A&T number 2, and number 1, the Rattlers of Florida A&M.
So tell everybody where they can get this information and listen to your show.
All right, so you can check me out. You get this information from Twitter at Inside HBCU Football. You can check me out if you want to listen to me. Facebook Live for now, Swag Sports Central on Sundays at 7:30 Central Time. And on Saturdays you can catch me on the Carlos Brown Show on Open Mic Network. I usually have that 11:30 spot with Brother Brown. But coming
great
up,
show, great spot that you do is weekly. Need to listen to it if you want your appetite whet during the off season of football. You need to listen to Carlos Brown. He's going to give you other good information.
Yes,
and probably one of the best baseball reports out there. We'll try to do what we do on baseball and rival that, but certainly Carlos Brown brings it with Michael Prince giving that insight on baseball like he does. So
very much
good information for this show.
Yeah.
And BJ in there. So good information there. Final thing there before we let you go, just want to say appreciate you giving us your time. We'd like to bring you back. Any final thoughts that you want to get out there?
Well, yeah, man. Make sure you tune in, man. It's the Barbershop with BJ Jones on the Open Mic Network. Coming this spring, you guys will like it if you've been checking me out.
Barbershop.
Swag Sports.
Man, you can always go to the barbershop.
Yeah, man. It's the barbershop, man. So you can sit down, man, and have a good time. I call it the realest, trillest sport guy talking chat, man.
I like that. Yeah, look at that little Houston and Trillis, man. We gonna like that. Now. If it's got a little trill in it, we could do some love with that now.
Yeah. So we got a lot of off season things coming. I think the hot button topic right now is Cedric, head coach of Arkansas Pine leaving to go to Southern Miss.
Yes.
So I think that has a lot of people buzzed right now. So we're getting all of that this weekend.
All right, yeah, I look forward to that. We didn't get a chance to get deep in that, so I really look forward to hearing what you're saying, and we might bring that up next week, follow up based on your analysis. With that, as we let you go, Anthony Weston says, y'all better pray Alabama A&M's defense can't get it together. What's up, Anthony? Great point. With that, thank you for calling in. We're going to run down quickly as we close it up to give you these top fives. You can close that line out for BJ Jones. Thank you, BJ Jones. With that, on the women's side, giving you top five quickly here. Not ranked last week, jumping into the polls, the Southern Jaguars as they continue to trend in the right direction, running it down 12-12, 24 in the conference race. At number 4, Texas Southern Tigers coming off their expansions, couldn't get it done against Jackson State. Got a break as Prairie View beats Jackson State, but maybe a little too late in the race, but they are still ranked number 4, 14-9-3 in the conference race, 9-3 that is. The previous ranked 4, they stay there. Bringing us to number 3, Norfolk State Spartans, 15-9, 9-2, 71 points. Previous ranked 3. A change at the top. Number 2, Jackson State Lady Tigers, because of the loss to Prairie View, 14-9, 12-1. Now have 3 first place votes, dropped from number 1 to number 2 with 95 points, bringing us the new number 1 team this week on the ladies' side is Red Hot Bethune-Cookman Lady Wildcats, 19-5, 11-1 in the conference race. They're rolling 7 first place votes, 108 total points. Previous ranked 2, getting back to where they were last season as they closed it in and got that championship done for the MEAC. Looks like they're going to be in the race again. Just looking outside, dropping out this week for the women's was North Carolina A&T State Aggies, 16-8, 8-4, tough weekend as they lost there. Finally on the men's, top 5 programs dropping out. North Carolina Central Eagles this week, bringing us to number 5. Tennessee State Tigers on the men's side, 16-11, 8-6, previous ranked 3. Number 4, Texas Southern Tigers, 12-13, 9-3. They were not ranked as they jumped back in the poll this week. At number 3, North Carolina A&T State Aggies, 13-14, 9-3, previous ranked 5 after that big win over North Carolina Central. They dropped Central out of the top 5 and they move up 2 spots. At number 2, Norfolk State Spartans, 13-13, 9-2. They got a favor bump for that loss to Central as they got in the race. They are 2 first place votes, 96. Move up 2 spots, bringing us to number 1. Prairie View A&M Panthers, 14-11, 10-2, 7 first place votes, 104 points. Remain number 1 for the second consecutive week. Big question is can they go on the road? Prairie View as they take on Mississippi Valley State and Pine Bluff, teams that are struggling in SWAC, but now you lose a point guard for both those games.
We got to watch the health of Devontae Patterson. He twisted his ankle last night as well.
Exactly. You've seen him limping off at the end of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see as they just have a tenuous 1-game lead over Texas Southern University. So we're going to see what this does on the men's side. With that, that'll do it for Dr. Cavill. We'll give you some of that love on Dean of the HBCU Sports. We'll finally say that until next time as we're up against it. Don't want to hurt anybody's feelings in regards to how that sounds. So we'll save you a little love. Well, maybe not.
HBCU report, and right now you're inside the HBCU Sports Line
I got
with
you.
my guy. All hail the dean of HBCU Sports. You know I named him that. Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, my guy. What's happening, man?
Tyrell, you know I had to do it too. You know I was just kidding when I said that. This is Dr. Cavill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watts and Charles Bridge, presented by Amber Slaughter, the Project Architect. Amber Slaughter, the Project Architect, where they handle the project planning, project development, project execution, and team management so you can run your business. Contact Amber Slaughter, the Project Architect, at www.theprojectarchitect.com to schedule an appointment. That is www.theprojectarchitect.com. As you just heard, I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As we come to a close, I hope you enjoyed our interview looking at the top football classes signing day just past February when all was signing with BJ Jones. Check him out. Again, we want to thank you for listening. For Dr. Cavill's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday 6 to 7 right here on KCOH 1230 AM. That is The Source. KCOH The Source, 1230 AM. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Dream big and continue to move forward. Be prepared for the soapbox heroes. They're next with Tyrone. He's going to give it to you. And now, he got the brand new television, high def streaming. Oh, he finna see all the little warts on his face. I hope he's
We got
clean.
a special guest tonight, Doc.
Tell him a little bit about it. Go ahead.
We got Willie D coming on tonight, and we're going to talk about just a little bit of everything. So stay tuned. Stick around. We're about to get into it.
With that, we will talk with you soon. Course lecture dismissed.